It's All Things MMA on KCLR all over again. My name is Ken McGuire, joined as always this week by Miles Price, who,
hello,
for video purposes, is right there. How are you? You're on the left-hand side. How are things?
Hello, I am fine. Good.
Excellent.
All is good. The weather isn't too great, but sure, look, we'll survive. Most of us are stuck inside anyway, so
that's the thing.
That's
the thing.
We
don't mind it so much.
No.
Miles, last week we were chatting with Tim Murphy. We had a lot of talk about the path to recognition for mixed martial arts in the country. This week, we're going back on what we touched on 2 weeks ago, which was UFC 259. It took place on Saturday just gone. We had 3 title fights and a fairly handsome looking early prelim card and prelim card, but we're going to kind of go back through the 3 big ones from the night, because the fallout from each one has very particular repercussions for the UFC and what's going to happen. Some surprises in the mix, some absolute non-events as we had predicted in the second fight we look at. But the first one was the bantamweight title fight between Peter Yan and Aljamain Sterling. When we were looking at this one, this would be Yan's first title defense. Aljo had worked his way up for that shot at the title as well. A little bit of animosity, I think, between the two before they got into the cage. Aljamain starting the sprightlier of the two, might have given him the first round. Yan being very super composed, slow and steady, wins the race type of vibe off him, until it took a very peculiar turn in the 4th round. Can you break it down for us? What did you think?
I thought it was a great fight. I thought Jan was on the way to winning. It looked like the Aljo was starting to run out of gas a little bit. His high pace at the start. I think that he prepared for that high pace by the looks of it throughout his training camp. But, in a real life situation, there's crashes of emotions, etc. And he is an emotionally driven fighter. You can see that the tenseness he has in the cage, so mightn't have been the best to have that kind of pace when your tendency to be a bit of an emotionally based fighter, which he is. And it works for him, but you have to play to your strengths. And I feel that, Jan looked like he was playing the long game and he was going to take him out, eventually, I thought, by the looks of it anyway. It seems like that there was a confusion in the corner. Jan is a very experienced, obviously he's the UFC champion. He's very, very experienced. He's well-schooled. And it seemed like a very amateur move to do. It seemed like something you'd see day one kind of competitor do. That does lead me to kind of what the commentators were saying. It could have possibly been a confusion in the corner, and there's that language barrier there as well. I know that there's animosity beforehand, but I just can't see Jan being the type of guy to, do something outlandish like that, and just throw away his chances of keeping his title over a knee. I don't think he disliked him that much, you know what I mean? Aljo had a bit of, it's a normal amount of animosity you'd have, leading up to a competition. And it just seemed like, there's a confusion in the heat of the moment from Jan, and there was something yelled from the corner, you're allowed to knee him or something like that. And then he just did it. And maybe that was it. He's fighters are conditioned like that too, where, the corner says something, they listen, they act. It's not really a conscious thing. It's a subconscious thing where it's just you just do what the corner says. If you're trained and schooled as an athlete like that, which I feel like Jan is, then he would have just automatically done what his corner would have told him to do. And I think that's possibly where it came from.
Yeah. What we should say to people as well, this incident in particular comes from an illegal knee on a downed opponent, which obviously you try to knee a downed opponent in mixed martial arts under the unified rules. It's deemed an illegal strike. It was deemed intentional at the time because the referee had advised Jan that Aljamain was down. So he's on the ground, his hands are down or his knees are touching the ground. Jan unleashes this knee and referee has to step in. There seemed to be a long time before the fight was called. I kind of got the impression that the ref was was waiting to see if Aljo was going to continue or wanted to continue, and then it became very apparent that anytime he tried to move or tried to stand up, that this wasn't going to work out. And we've seen fighters get knocked out and recover quicker and be back on their feet quicker. It seems a little I don't know, a little scary, really, the way it unfolded.
Yeah, I don't want to come across now. I mightn't be gathering any Aljo fans after this new statement, but I mean, it did look like he kind of played that a little bit. Maybe he was like, to me, like, you know, it looked like he was definitely hurt.
Mm-hmm.
Did he kind of go the extra mile to just get the title? I don't know. Like, I'm just throwing it out there. I don't know. Yeah. Like, you know, like, that's controversial. It is, like, you know, but it, like, unless you're like completely like, you know, and all that, like a lot of fighters, you just see, like, I've seen guys get worse illegal shots than that, get up and move on.
Yeah.
And I think we could anybody that's watched MMA for a long time has seen that. I'm not downplaying the how extreme that knee was and how it may have damaged him. But did he, because he's an emotionally based athlete, weigh up the risk and reward and just go, you know what, I just think I'll just stay down here and get the title and just defend it and get him next time, you know?
Yeah, okay. Well, it's the first time that a title in the UFC has changed hands from a disqualification. I know there was kind of talks of things harking back to WWE side of things and professional wrestling, where if you were in trouble and you didn't want to lose your title, the easiest way not to lose the title was to get DQ'd or have the fight ruled a no contest, and nothing would change hands. Is the obvious path now to book
get
the
DQ'd
two of them
every fight?
DQ'd every fight. No problem. Done. That's the easiest way to win titles.
Hole in the system.
Is the obvious path now to rematch the two? Sterling was, I think when they looked at the scorecards, he was down on 2 of the 3 judges' scorecards. If the strike hadn't kind of happened the way it did, it's very possible that Jan could have had a point deducted. If it hadn't been called, he could have had a point deducted, maybe have 2 points deducted for the intention behind it. On the scorecard side of things, that would leave them pretty much level going into the 5th. I think, which kind of evens out the fight that little bit more. Is the obvious path now to book them as soon as possible and get this done again?
Well, I think that's the obvious road to go. You know, I think Jan was clearly on the road to win in that fight. Personally, like, you know, I think he was going to win, and I feel like that it's the obvious. Yeah, that's going to happen for sure. It's probably not going to be for about 3 months, because he's going to get, because of the knee and the nature of the knee, I think he's going to be suspended for a couple of months, I'd say, on medical. So,
and off the back of that, you know, you come in, there's certain expectations about people defending a title. I'm sure he's happy that he has the title there in a way. I know in the immediacy of it, he was handed the belt, it was put around him, and he just stripped it off and he threw it on the ground. He's like, look, this isn't how I wanted to do this. He will come into this technically as the champion, albeit the kind of circumstances are a little bit weird. Would you expect to see a champion's performance from Sterling in order to cement that title as his?
Oh man, I don't know. I think that Jan will come in with a point to prove.
Okay.
I think that Jan he's probably sitting at home going, that motherfucker played that fucking card. He played that fucking card. He's going to go to the jar. He's going to go to the jar. That's what I'd be thinking anyway.
Yeah.
Maybe that's the competitor in me that would try and find a hole in somebody's mental game, which it is pretty much, I suppose. I'd be thinking along those lines for Jan, you know, like, he's shown weakness there. He could have gotten up and gotten through that. He chose to take the easy way out for the title. I'm going to show him who the real champ is next. And I think that'll probably be what happens, I'd say.
Okay. Second fight on the night, or the penultimate fight on the night, was the women's featherweight title, Amanda Nunes and Megan Anderson. There's a couple of things off the back of this fight. Going into it, we figured that there was no other possible outcome other than Amanda Nunes will win this fight. And as soon as it started, it looked like there is no other possible outcome other than Amanda Nunes is going to win this fight. And she did it very quickly, very cleanly as well. What did you think?
It's the same as always with Amanda Nunes. I just think that there's nobody really that seems to be a threat in the foreseeable future for her. Like, she's really, really dominant champion. She's the GOAT. Like, I mean, in regards to, like, she's taken everybody out. Like, I think she'd give most guys a hard time. I think she probably does in the gym, to be honest.
Yeah, I think that was that was referenced to as well in the commentary side of things, and I know you had alluded to it as well. It's ATT is where she's training out of, isn't it?
Yeah. I think that it's a dangerous place to be in a sparring room with Amanda, male or female. I think I don't think there's going to be, like, do you know the way you can kind of see up and coming competitors coming up the ranks, and you're like, what? Give her ears, you know. There's just nobody there. Like, there's just nobody there right now. So, I mean, yeah, I just think that she's an amazing champion, and she's probably going to, you know, I know it's far-fetched to say, because anything can happen in such a complex sport like mixed martial arts. It's just, that's why they say anything can happen. It's a very complex sport, like, you know. So, but it's just, you know, she just reminds me of Habib, the female version. It's very hard to see her losing, like, you know what I mean? It's true. It just seems to be far ahead of everybody else.
Yeah, well, that's very true. I think on both the bantamweight and the featherweight side of things. In the wake of it, Megan Anderson will not have her contract renewed by the UFC, so she's been let go, which means she's no longer part of the featherweight setup. And I know I had thrown the idea out a couple of weeks back that if this fight went by way of Amanda Nunes, that the women's featherweight division, without the likes of Nunes, without the likes of Chris Cyborg in there, is pretty much done and dusted. Seemingly, well, at least according to the reports I've been reading this morning, that they're looking at the featherweight division existing only as long as Amanda Nunes fancies defending that title, and other than that, barring an official confirmation, the division is done and dusted. Amanda has suggested that her next fight will be at bantamweight. She's going back to 135. She wants to get that. She wants to keep those title defenses coming, because, like we've suggested and speculated, there is nobody at featherweight, and it's very possible that we have seen the last of that division within the UFC.
Yeah, I feel like that is the case. Yeah, I feel like that it's kind of one of those divisions that's dying out a bit. And look, if that's the way it's going, that's the way it has to be. Unfortunately, it's an entertainment-based business. It doesn't mean that it's right, but that's the nature of the beast.
Yep. Well, some of with the entertainment side of things in mind, the last of the big fights in the main event for UFC 259 was the light heavyweight title fight between Jan Blachowicz and Israel Adesanya. Adesanya as the current middleweight champion, moving up for a crack at the 205 title. Even despite the move up, Blachowicz was the betting underdog for this, and he's been underdog for quite a lot of his fights. I know he had the win over Dominic Reyes to pick up the title. I'm fairly sure he would have been the underdog for the Dominic Reyes fight as well. But in a genuine contender in Adesanya, I see this as a really solid title defense for him. Disappointing for Adesanya, obviously, the way that the result went. I know we'd spoken and you'd spoken a good bit about the punching power that Blachowicz would bring, but we saw him very much play to his strengths, particularly in the latter rounds when the takedowns started coming and he finally got to the ground. It was like, okay, I'm the bigger guy here. I'm going to do what I can do. I'm going to hold him on the ground. I'm going to smother him a little. I'm going to, be heavy. I'm going to take Adesanya's energy away from him. And he came away with the title win.
Yeah.
or the defense, Adesanya has handed his first professional loss. He says something along the lines of, "You've got to dare to be great." The loss didn't, mean anything to him. He was the one that was willing to put it on the line. It was a big fight. What did you make?
I feel like it went the way I expected it to go.
Yeah.
I don't get every prediction right because again, martial arts is very complex. But I feel like that this one, yeah, but this one definitely I felt like was going to go down this road. It was either Adesanya was going to keep distance and pick him off, or Jan was going to play the long game, grapple him in the later rounds, and kind of take the win. And that's kind of what happened. And I also feel like that. Jan actually did very well with the striking. Like he played the long game with Adesanya for quite a while, and it did seem like that when some of those shots that Adesanya hit him with, I think they would have knocked guys out in middleweight. And I feel like he made a mistake in not taking a bit more time to put on some muscle. Like the size does matter. There's a reason why there's weight divisions, and like I do not feel like Blachowicz is better skilled wise. He has the strengths, obviously, that don't match up well compared to Adesanya's, as was seen in the fight, and it played out. But I mean, if Blachowicz was a middleweight, I think he would have been knocked out with some of those shots that Adesanya, or rocked and finished and TKO'd, with some of those shots that he hit him with. So I think Israel, I don't think it was a game plan thing. Like he was saying, like it was a bad day in the office. I feel like that he made a bad decision, I feel, or he could have made a different choice leading into his fight camp and throughout his fight camp in regards to putting on that little bit extra size.
Sure.
Could have gotten him up from bottom, and sometimes his arms were like he was opening up his inside position and his arms are up here, and he didn't seem to have the strength or the technique base to get to like a solid underhook, to get to inside position and fight to a single leg, kind of get that wrestle jits game going, threaten a couple of submissions to at least to get Blachowicz to back up and make space and then exit. There was kind of none of that. And I feel like size and maybe a little bit of grappling played into that too. Like he's only a purple belt, Israel as well. Like, people forget. And Blachowicz was a black belt, and a big black belt.
Yeah.
So a big black belt versus a kind of a scrawny compared to him purple belt. It didn't really play out to us.
But some of those things that you talk about, they strike me as going back to fundamentals, and we've spoken about this before. Particularly when you're on the ground, there's some very basic things that you learn to do very early on, and those seem to be absent. He's quite technically adept, and I wonder, do people kind of jump into they go for the kind of the technical way out first, rather than take that time within the fight to go right back to the fundamentals and go, okay, well, look, if I can shift my hips here, or if I can get my feet up here and get on and kind of move out of position. Is there a fundamental element missing from his game when he's on the ground?
I feel like this could almost be related to McGregor's competition game. It's like there is like, I'm sure if you saw Adesanya in the gym, you'd see him give black belts a hard time, but if in the cage, it's very different. In a live situation, it's very different. If you're not used to competing and applying these skills in a live situation, then I don't feel like there's going to be an insecurity kind of formed there that you may not be may not know of, and this is being shown in fights with McGregor, who's primarily a stand-up distance sharpshooter striker that knocks lads out. It's being shown now with Adesanya, that you put people into their most limiting factor of their game, their actual competitive game, then there's going to be a confidence for the opponent, and there's going to be a lack of confidence for that other opponent, like, you know what I mean? And I feel like that's kind of shown through there a little bit. And yes, fundamentals do play a huge part. I mean, look at Khabib's game. It's not complex. Yes, it's Sambo based, and it looks a little bit different in regards to the wrestling mixed in with the trips, which is judo based. It's the hybrid, but you know, he does the same thing over and over again, and it's amazing how people see that as like, you know, that's what's amazing, is doing the really simple things correctly at the right time. Weight distribution is on point, principles and concepts that are bred into you over a decade or more of training, and implemented in live competition. That's what becomes a wow, amazing performance, you know. And I feel like that is a part of Israel's game that was missing. It wasn't I don't think he was owning it by saying it was a bad day in the office. Yeah. I don't think he was owning it. I think he seemed very humble. I think he was taking it well, but I don't think he owned it. I don't think he went like, look, size did matter. I think he mentioned that, but he definitely could have went along down the lines of reflecting now and going, look, my fundamentals on the jiu-jitsu side of things were not on point. I need to put some work in there, like, you know, for the next time I compete. Not just, and this is the bit that's going to be difficult for him now. When he goes back in there at middleweight, there's going to be a confidence with the contenders now. They're going to have there's a hole there now. There's a hole there now. I can, and that play of energy is a huge part of the game. A huge part. If I was a middleweight contender and I saw that shit, man, I'd be starting my wrestling training right now. I'd be doing that shit right now, you know what I mean? Definitely, like, so that's my input anyway.
Any thoughts on what comes next for either? I mean, obviously Blachowicz is going to stay where he is at light heavyweight. Adesanya has said in the wake of the fight that he will return to middleweight straight away. He's also, like Nunes, has a title to defend. He's kind of cleared out an awful lot of people around him. Robert Whittaker, maybe a possibility for Blachowicz. I'm not totally sure. I don't think Reyes will get a run in again. Thiago Santos lost to Rakic at the weekend. Any names that you think might make an appearance in front of either fighter later this year?
Oh, I'd have to look at the light heavyweight division. If I was being honest with you, Ken, I haven't really looked into the depth of the contenders in a while. You know, it doesn't seem to be, Bellator seem to be have a deeper light heavyweight division than the UFC do now. Not to take anything away from Blachowicz, but I mean, taking out DC and Jones, I mean, you know, it's not really as exciting as what it used to be, is it? You know.
True enough. Well, look, we're likely to see both men fight again, I would imagine, at some stage heading into the autumn or into the winter side of things. That's the wrap up for UFC 259. Miles, if people want to catch up with you directly, I know we've spoken about the training side of things before. That obviously continues for yourself. What's the best way for people to get in touch?
Just Miles Price MMA for all things martial arts and online coaching related.
Excellent. I have been Ken McGuire. He has been Miles Price. This has been All Things MMA, and we will do it again next week. Good luck.